Are you struggling with teaching multiplication? Today's video is all about this topic. We will outline 10 tips or insights that you should consider if your child is struggling with multiplication. We'll also look at ways you can make math more fun and less tedious, and we'll talk about programs like CTCMath that could help you out when teaching multiplication to struggling students. Hello! If you're new to my channel, I'm Laura from monkeymom.com, a blog dedicated to all things homeschooling. As a veteran homeschooler, I'm excited to bring you fresh ideas, reviews, and freebies to help you in your homeschool journey. So make sure to hit the subscribe button to never miss a video. And as usual, if you want to find out more, check out the corresponding blog post linked below. Before we dive in, I want to give special thanks to CTCMath, today's sponsor, a comprehensive and flexible online math curriculum that's been helping thousands of families across the globe to understand math concepts. I've reviewed their program last year, and I will post the link in the description if you want to check that out. After going through Algebra 1 and elementary math in our homeschool, I can say with certainty that teaching basic math is sometimes more difficult than algebra. We had our fair share of hurdles in math despite my rising 7th grader getting ready for high school geometry for the upcoming school year, and one of them was multiplication. Multiplication isn't an easy concept to master, so it's pretty common for parents to be scratching their heads when teaching multiplication to struggling students or older students that don't seem to get it. I think it's important to understand the reasons why kids might find multiplication difficult and then look at possible solutions to address whatever is holding them back. So now, on to my 10 tips and tricks for teaching multiplication to struggling students. Number 1. Multiplication might be difficult to understand without other foundational skills. If your kids are struggling with understanding multiplication, you might want to step back and see if they have gaps in their understanding of addition or struggle with basic number concepts. If this is the case, don't be afraid to backtrack and fill those gaps. Multiplication is repeated addition, and kids need a good grasp of addition before moving on to multiplication. They also need to understand how patterns work and have a certain sense of the numbers and the relationships between them. So how do we identify these gaps? Online math programs like CTCMath are great at finding the math gaps your kids might have and ensuring they are addressed, since they offer both testing and access to all grade levels with one account. So you can efficiently track and cover problem areas of your kids when it comes to math. Number 2. Focusing on rote memorization isn't the right path to understanding multiplication. While memorization has its place, relying first and foremost on rote memorization for teaching multiplication can cause kids to struggle down the road because they don't understand how multiplication works. In math, kids need more than a good memory to be successful. I know that in the past, using rote memorization to learn the times table was the only way to go, but things have changed, and rightly so, because many of us who have memorized multiplication have never really understood the relationship between numbers and how they work together. Memorizing doesn't equal understanding, and it's something I already covered in my Singapore math article linked below. Nowadays, we should focus on helping kids develop math fluency while also making sure they understand multiplication by incorporating various strategies. A combination of deep understanding, mastery, and finally memorization by spaced repetition will ensure kids grasp the why behind multiplication while also performing well in timed tests where speed is important. If you think this is the right way to teach math from an understanding and mastery point of view, you might want to check out the Singapore math method of teaching math. If you aren't sure if a mastery approach is best for you, or you don't wish to teach math yourself, CTCMath can be a better choice, being flexible enough to be used as both a mastery and a spiral approach, and easy to implement since it requires almost no intervention from the parent. This online math curriculum is great for treating math anxiety for both parents and children while ensuring kids really grasp the concepts taught. Number 3. Concrete before abstract. Always. Kids learn best by doing. We all know that. And yet, as they progress through math, we demand more and more abstract thinking of them, tending to skip the concrete stage altogether. If they're lucky, their math curriculum encourages a use of manipulatives, at least initially. But I noticed that most curricula place less and less importance on this step as kids move to multiplication. We seem to allow them plenty of time to explore numbers and basic operations like addition and subtraction, but we don't spend the same amount of time and attention when they reach multiplication and division. This is the wrong approach, and we should allow them to use manipulatives for as long as they need until they are able to solve abstract multiplication without any issues. By allowing kids to see how multiplication works hands-on, to experiment and discover the relationships between numbers, we allow deep understanding. It's not play, it's learning. Once understood, a concept is almost impossible to forget because in order to truly understand something, we must first link it to previous experiences. Students with a rich memory background and deeper understanding of the relationship between numbers are better equipped to tackle new problems. Using manipulatives and real-life situations or examples to explain multiplication greatly reduces the need to rely on rote memorization. Kids will develop a strong conceptual understanding of how multiplication works, and they will be able to spot patterns in future problems. It took Mark 2 years to be fluent in multiplication and division. Was I worried? Yes. But I also trusted the process and pulled out our Cuisenaire rods and base 10 blocks for every single math lesson. I just didn't want him to rote memorize multiplication. I wanted him to learn it naturally through exposure and hands-on learning. And yes, it did take forever to go through each lesson, but we trudged through it. Our curriculum wasn't meant for slow-moving, self-paced instruction, so that did cause some tension for us. But once he understood how multiplication works and was exposed to enough exercise, he took off. If you want to avoid our situation, opt for a self-paced curriculum that works well with any manipulatives you might choose. One which allows you to complete lessons in your own time, like CTCMath, and offers you access to all grade levels so you can focus on learning, not on moving on to the next grade. Number 4. Abruptly pushing kids into abstract thinking may cause problems with understanding multiplication. As you move kids from concrete math or hands-on with manipulatives to symbolic or abstract representations, some students might find it difficult to make this transition. Math teaching experts like Liping Ma recommend clarity of instruction and coherence when teaching elementary math, and this includes using clear transitions from one step to another. One way of easing up this transition from concrete to abstract is to introduce an additional step, commonly known in Singapore math as pictorial representation. But this might be difficult to implement at home if the parents aren't familiar with the Singapore math method of teaching math. But there's a solution to those of you that feel anxious about the learning curve of this math approach. Just like Singapore math methods, CTCMath makes use of pictorial examples on screen, using this transitional step to abstract multiplication. Another excellent way of helping kids transition into the abstract portion of multiplication is to mind the type of wording you use. Instead of saying the words multiplied by or times, use of. This simple change can spell the difference between getting how multiplication works or not. None of the words we commonly use to describe multiplication make immediate sense to young learners because they require abstract thinking and connections they might not possess yet. By using of, we encourage them to think in groups or arrays, which are easier to visualize and solve. To offer you a clear example of this, instead of saying this as 3 multiplied by 5, we can present it to kids as 3 of 5 or 3 groups of 5 objects. This approach can take multiplication closer to kids' concrete explorations with manipulatives and help them develop a deeper understanding of the concept. This is one of the tricks that helped Mark transition from Cuisenaire rods to traditional multiplication on paper, and something that's beautifully explained by educationunboxed.com in her videos. Number 5. Do you know your child's learning style? I know this might sound cliche, but hear me out. Does your kid learn best by reading, by hearing things being explained, by doing, by moving? Provide multimodal instruction. Recognize that students with different learning styles and abilities may benefit from various instructional approaches. Incorporate visual aids, verbal explanations, hands-on activities, and technology-based resources to present multiplication concepts in multiple ways. This ensures the struggling students have access to different models of learning and increases their chances of understanding and retaining the material. I know you might wonder, how on earth can you teach multiplication by moving? I'll give you examples of materials for multiplication learning for each of the learning styles. But first, when it comes to math, finding a curriculum that caters to multiple learning styles can be a great starting point. A homeschool math curriculum online, like CTCMath, that combines audio-visual instruction with printable worksheets and games, can be just what you need. If you want to find out more about this curriculum, read my CTCMath review linked below. So let's see some examples of math curricula and programs for various learning styles. There are many more out there, but hopefully this will be a good starting point for your research. Math for visual learners. Singapore Math is a great option if you have visual learners. Math for kinesthetic learners. Math You See is all about manipulatives, or just add manipulatives to any math curriculum you're using. Don't forget about fun games either. Math for auditory learners. Life of Fred and similar math reading books might be best for auditory learners. And for reading and writing learners, Saxon math or classical math approaches with a lot of repetition and drills added in might work best. Number 6. Lack of practice and reinforcement can lead to poor multiplication skills. Learning multiplication takes time and practice. Kids that don't have enough chances to practice multiplication have a harder time recalling multiplication facts. But by practice and reinforcement, I don't mean drilling, or at least not traditional drilling. There are a lot of ways to practice multiplication that are in fact drilling in disguise. Math curricula like CTCMath know the importance of practice when it comes to basic math operations, but they also know most kids prefer playing over doing worksheets. That's why they incorporated math drills in their online curriculum in the guise of games that you can try for free. One of the games they offer, Speed Skills, is a simple speed game for all the operations and even the order of operations. But they also offer a fun game explicitly for multiplication called Times Tables Shoot 'em Up, a classic space shooting game. Mark loves playing with these games, and he doesn't even realize he is honing his speed math skills by playing them. Best of all, you can try CTC Math's games for free. If you prefer taking the math games offline, there are a lot of multiplication printables online for any age. One of them is my multiplication game printable Castle Walls, which is in fact a simple multiplication arrays game that you can use with or without Cuisenaire rods or other math manipulatives. You can download it from my website, link below. For other multiplication printables, check the specially curated list on my blog post. Number 7. Always offer more than one strategy. One of the major flaws of traditional math curricula is that it generally presents kids with a single method of approaching math concepts and expects everyone to understand it. The problem with this is that kids' brains work differently and are wired differently. What works well for one might not work at all for another. Our duty as homeschool parents and teachers is to find multiple ways of presenting new concepts to kids and let them choose their preferred way of doing it. Some of the most comprehensive math curricula out there adopted this strategy of presenting children with multiple math heuristics, aka strategies or shortcuts, of solving a problem or approaching a concept. CTCMath is one example of a comprehensive math curriculum that presents kids with multiple strategies for understanding multiplication. Some of the strategies CTCMath teaches when it comes to multiplication are repeated addition, multiplication arrays, using fingers to multiply, making groups, doubles, multiplication by using a number line, and more. And if you're past basic multiplication and into multiplying multiple digits, You can check out my printable just for these, teaching you 7 ways to solve multiplication with multiple digits, including visual methods like the Chinese lattice method or the Japanese dot method of multiplication. Number 8. Lack of motivation and engagement when learning multiplication. Kids that don't initially understand the underlying concepts of multiplication can easily become uninterested in learning more. Similarly, when students don't see the relevance or importance of multiplication, they might have difficulty focusing and really applying themselves to learn and practice multiplication skills. So what can we do to motivate them? Show students how multiplication is used in everyday life and real-world scenarios. For example, explore how multiplication is used in calculating prices, measuring ingredients for recipes, or determining distances in areas. Make it relatable. Another method you can use with any curriculum is to change the output or input. What I mean by that is if you see that the concept isn't sticking and kids lose their motivation to try more, make it interesting for them. Shake things up. It doesn't have to be much, or it can be hopping to another curriculum for teaching that particular concept. The beauty of eclectic homeschooling is that it has taught me early on to make use of all the wonderful tools that we have available and not cling to a method or curriculum for everything, even if it means we're hopping elsewhere to learn multiplication. If you're doing a textbook-based curriculum and you're stuck, don't be afraid to hop into the world of online math curricula like CTCMath, even if it's only to teach a concept or brush up on some skills. The other simple method of motivating kids is to simply change the way you do things. Don't be scared to let kids type their answers instead of writing them down, of using stickers and stamps instead of writing on their worksheets. Don't be afraid of using games instead of drills. Sometimes a small adjustment can go a long way when it comes to kids being open to learning more. Number 9. Don't be afraid of using technology. I'll just say it. Use technology and digital resources if you have to. Kids learn well when the medium is right for them. So if that's on screen, so be it. Don't be afraid of pulling out those apps. Incorporating technology and digital resources can be highly beneficial when teaching multiplication to struggling students. Here are some ways to leverage technology in multiplication instruction. Interactive apps and games. Explore educational apps and games specifically designed to teach and reinforce multiplication concepts. These can engage students, provide immediate feedback, and make learning multiplication more enjoyable. One of our favorite app developers ever when it comes to number sense is Dragonbox. Virtual manipulatives. Virtual manipulatives such as virtual base 10 blocks or fraction bars can help struggling students visualize multiplication problems and develop a deeper understanding of the concepts. If you want a list of wonderful online manipulatives, check my Cuisinaire Odds post linked below. Adaptive learning platforms. Consider using adaptive learning platforms that adjust the difficulty level based on each student's progress and provide personalized instruction and practice opportunities like CTCMath. Because of its progress tracking and adaptive nature, CTCMath ensures kids are always challenged at their level, progressing at their pace. And finally, number 10, address learning difficulties like dyscalculia. Finally, if you tried everything else and your kids still have trouble understanding multiplication, consider looking out for any learning difficulties that might affect their ability to process mathematical concepts. Conditions such as dyscalculia can make multiplication particularly challenging for these students. Finding out the cause for their math struggles means you can make informed decisions in the way you present math to them and also in the math curriculum you choose. Dyscalculia is commonly called math dyslexia because much like dyslexia, it disrupts areas in the brain related to math. Dyscalculia affects an individual's ability to understand and work with numbers and mathematical concepts. People with dyscalculia may have difficulties with various aspects of math. They may have difficulty with basic arithmetic operations such as addition, subtraction, multiplication, and division. Memorizing and recalling math facts may be challenging for them. They may struggle with understanding the magnitude of numbers, comparing and ordering them, and recognizing patterns. They may also find it hard to comprehend mathematical symbols, equations, and mathematical language, which can impede their understanding of math problems and concepts. And some individuals may have difficulty with spatial reasoning, which can affect their understanding of geometric shapes, spatial relationships, and measurement concepts. It's important to understand that dyscalculia isn't a result of low intelligence or lack of effort. It's a neurodevelopmental condition that affects the brain's ability to process numerical and mathematical information. Children with dyscalculia will have a particularly difficult time understanding how multiplication and division work. When it comes to these concepts, memorization of facts is not recommended because dyscalculia limits the available memory for these concepts. Does that mean the kids with learning difficulties like dyscalculia can't learn math or basic operations? No, it simply means that you need to find more suitable strategies like the ones presented in this video to explain these concepts. This also includes choosing the right curriculum for struggling students like CTCMath, an online curriculum that approaches math in a way that's suitable for kids with learning difficulties because it focuses on multisensory learning. It allows students to work at their own pace, the lessons are clear and structured, it has short lessons, it offers immediate feedback, and it tracks progress so parents can identify areas of struggle. Math isn't easy, and when it comes to teaching multiplication to struggling students, parents have to take several things into consideration, including the possibility of switching curricula or addressing any learning difficulties that might stop kids from understanding mathematical concepts. Fortunately, there are a lot of strategies and tricks we can use to make multiplication learning easier for the kids, like focusing on understanding, using manipulatives, using fun activities instead of drilling, and presenting kids with multiple ways of solving multiplication. There are also amazing math programs out there like CTCMath that work perfectly for a variety of learning styles and even for students with dyscalculia. What are some of your strategies for teaching multiplication to struggling students? Let me know in the comments below. So this was it for today. I hope this video has been useful. If you've enjoyed it, don't forget to like and subscribe. Until next time, stay curious.